Sometimes in reunion, things don't go as one would hope. On the other side, you find someone that you just can't continue a relationship with because they are toxic. I couldn't imagine how this would feel. But here's what I would do if I found someone on the other side that was toxic. But before I get into all of that, let me introduce myself. My name is Kat Davald, and I'm a 49-year-old birth mom, and I've been in reunion with my 33-year-old daughter for 5 years now. So me and my daughter have a great relationship. There's no toxicity at all. We've been doing good throughout the 5 years that we've been in reunion. However, I have heard in my birth mom groups a lot of people struggling. I've also heard of adoptees having or finding rather toxic birth parents or birth families. So this can actually go both ways. It's not just birth parents finding adoptees that are toxic. So I want to get into a little bit about what could make a relationship toxic. And the first thing I want to talk about is addiction. So obviously, alcohol addiction and drug addiction can cause toxicity in a relationship and really cause a reunion to fail. But along with that, it's not just those two types of addictions that may be an issue. There's other types of addictions as well. Perhaps there's a gambling addiction, or maybe a shopping addiction, or, and along with shopping goes hoarding. So there are all types of different things that can really cause reunion to stall and or fail. Another type of cause of toxicity within a reunion relationship is financial. And this kind of goes along with some of the addictions because financially, alcoholism, drug addiction, gambling, obviously can really cost a lot and cause strain because there's not enough money and, things are being used inappropriately or funds are being used inappropriately. So there might be financial issues. But alongside with that, and the person doesn't have to be in any form of addiction, but perhaps they are just a little bit too lazy and they're not willing to work and pull their own weight, or at least even try to contribute to household expenses. So that's another financial burden that may cause toxicity within a reunion relationship. So another reason somebody might end up being toxic is some mental health issues. And really the top one that comes to my mind is narcissism. A narcissist is really hard to deal with, and that can be really damaging to one's mental health. Along with narcissism is gaslighting. I've been gaslit my whole entire life, and now I understand it and I see it, so it's easier for me to see, but sometimes that just wears on you. And then there's also PTSD, and this is kind of different from that, but if you are clinically depressed and you have PTSD, sometimes it's hard to overcome that depression and have a healthy reunion. I hear this a lot. I have PTSD. I have CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because it stems from my childhood. I'm not going to get into that. I did make a little bit of a video on that way back under emotional flashbacks. So I'll link that here for you if you want to check that out. But if somebody has PTSD or CPTSD, it sometimes is hard to be able to get out of that funk and be in a healthy relationship with other people. And then lastly, two things that a lot of people don't take into consideration, and I'm going to say these together because they kind of go hand in hand, but they're political beliefs and religious beliefs. Those two can really cause a strain in a relationship, and if you don't see eye to eye on them or agree to not discuss them and bring them into your relationship, they can cause a really big strain on trying to get reunion off the ground. So, what are some steps that I would take if I was in a difficult, toxic type of relationship? The first thing I would do is I would try to have a discussion. And I know this is easy to say. It's very hard to have a discussion with, let's say, a narcissist because I've been through that before. Um, so sometimes you're beating a dead horse, you're banging your head against the wall, and I get it. But I would try it first. I would try to have a conversation and make them not make them obviously, but try to have them understand where I was coming from, try to see your side of things, and offer them help. Offer them, maybe therapy for people who are depressed or narcissistic. Um, Obviously, if they have an addiction, maybe try to get them into rehab for drug or alcohol addiction. Gambling and shopping, there are therapists for that, and I think there's support groups for that as well. Maybe if they're not willing to work, maybe you can try to help them get a job. And if you don't want to do that, maybe, guide them towards job help. I know like the Goodwill has people who can help guide you creating a resume and those types of things. The state of Connecticut, I know, has a job, when you're in unemployment, you have to go through the job board and the job bank and everything like that. And they have people there that will help you and will get you into some type of schooling so that you can have some type of skill. So maybe you can guide them in that direction as well for those types of people. And then when you have your political and religious beliefs that don't meet eye to eye, maybe you can ask them, hey, I know we don't meet eye to eye on this. So maybe can we just not discuss those two topics and leave those in the background and go forward with our relationship without having that interfere? It doesn't hurt to ask and to try these types of tactics. Obviously, if that doesn't work, you might end up in an argument and it might be time to part ways. So if I was in this situation, there are some do's and don'ts that I would follow as my own boundaries. The first one being I would not let myself get used. I know that's easy to say, but going along, if you can provide yourself with boundaries, you can end up cutting things off relatively easy. Now, I know that it sounds so easy because these are our children or our birth parents, and we really want this to work. And we want to be there for them and help them along the way. But sometimes you have to cut it off because it's just not going anywhere. If people are unwilling to get help, then you have to create that boundary for yourself. The other don't that I have is don't go broke. Don't put your house on a mortgage or don't refinance your house. Don't cash out your retirement. Don't sell your car. Don't go through all of your savings in order to help the other person. Because in the long run, if you run out of everything, that will cause undue strain upon your relationship even more. Neither one of you can help each other then. I have heard this happening. I've heard of birth moms trying to help adoptees and they end up spending all of their money and have no savings left and have nothing else to provide. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to cut people off, no matter how hard it is to do. Another don't that I would advise against is don't lose yourself. And I mean this in a mental capacity. It's so hard to be beaten down over and over and over again. So you need to set your boundaries and just say no if things are getting out of control. If you are dealing with somebody that is a narcissist and is gaslighting you and is using you and you just don't feel right about it, you will know in your gut, you will know. And it's hard. I'm sure it is super hard to do, but you have to cut them off and cut your losses for your own mental health. In my birth mom groups, I hear of women who have to cut off their children that they've been in reunion with because of their own mental health. And at first I couldn't understand it. And I said, how could you do that? That's your child. You've been around and, they deserve everything. And I say this because I come from a place where I'm in a happy reunion with my daughter. We don't have these types of issues. So it's easy for me to poo poo on somebody else's situation. But some of these women have really gone through the ringer with their adoptees and vice versa. I don't want to make this sound like it's just birth mothers or birth parents or birth family or anything. I've heard of adoptees too, but I'm more active in my birth mom group. So I just use that as a reference. So please don't take it as I'm just saying that one side or one size fits all or anything. But I couldn't imagine because I'm not in that situation. If I was in that situation, I would try my damnedest to create those boundaries for myself. For the most part, because I haven't had any boundaries in my whole entire life. And now at this age, I really want to follow those. Lastly, what I would do is I would keep the door open for them. Now, I know this sounds easy to do, but I would keep it cracked open because you don't know if in 5 years, 10 years, 15 or 20 years, if that person decides to get clean and you can go forward and have a healthy relationship with them. So I would keep the door open, maybe not wide open, maybe not so open that they would know about it, but in your heart and in your mind, possibly keep that door open just in case anything did change in the future. Honestly, all the toxicity may be trauma related, but even still, you can't be run down forever. The person has to realize that they need help and they also have to want it. However, political and religious beliefs may be a tough one to solve. I have this issue with my own mom where we have differences in political beliefs, so we've made an agreement that in order to keep the peace, we don't really discuss it. She tries, but I shut her down and we have a good understanding. Lastly, when I say keep the door open for them, I understand that sometimes bridges have been burned way too far and they can't be kept open any longer. And in those cases, you will know when enough is enough. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon. Bye bye.